This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues.
This is Let's Talk Teens with Abbi and Cheree, episode 56. What to do when your teen is in big trouble.
I know sometimes Cheree and we love to just chat about how amazing teens are, which we are the biggest believer of that. And yet sometimes there's a reality that our teen can get into some really big trouble, right? And this might be the first time in their life because I feel like elementary age and below, like they don't even know how to get into too much trouble, right? But as a teenager, yeah, we can start to get into some bigger trouble. And I think all of us have had brushes maybe with the law or with our principal, right? To varying degrees. And so I wanted to chat about like, what should I do as a parent when my youth is in really big trouble? Like police are involved, maybe principals involved, suspension, maybe other families are involved, right? And it's kind of going for more than just in our home. And so we've got some tips for you and we've got some stories to share to hopefully help you out. But the first thing, parents, to remember is we want to stay neutral. So sometimes I'll hear parents, and I think this is very innocent, but they'll say, "Well, my child is proven innocent until proven guilty." Or I'll hear the opposite. They'll say, "My child is guilty until proven innocent," right? So we kind of have two extremes there. And honestly, we should be as neutral as possible. So, in an example where maybe, hey, the police have knocked on your door and they said, "Hey, your child's been involved in a hit and run," which is what they did to my parents when my younger brother, um, he had just learning how to drive. Him and his girlfriend had driven to the Bountiful Rec Center. And of course, out of all the open parking lots, they parked next to a brand new Tesla and he dinked it a little bit. And like a lot of us, when bad stuff happens, we run away, right? So they were like, "Let's just go. Nobody saw. Like, let's just go. It's just so tiny." Well, there was footage, right? But then now my dad's got an officer at this door saying, "Your son's been involved in a hit and run," right? When emotions like that, and oh my goodness, is that scary or what, right? We want to stay neutral, right? We want to be neutral to the person in authority, whether that's the principal or the police, and say, "Yes, tell me everything that's happened," right? And just take that in. And then we want to take our youth aside too and have a real honest conversation of, "Listen, I need you to be real with me. I need you to be honest with me so that we can get to the bottom of this, but tell me what happened," right? And so that we stay in that neutral place and not, "Oh, I know that they've done something wrong," or the opposite of, "How dare you? Don't you know my child's perfect," right? We want to find that middle where we're just listening.
This is such good advice. I'm just sitting here thinking, Abby, I wish someone would have given me this advice when I started the whole teenage thing with my kids. I learned it, but how nice, like, just to have that reminder of, okay, if something like this happens, stay neutral. I think that's such a game changer for us parents because it's easy to become emotionally charged, either
Mm-hmm.
defensive or really angry and upset for good reason sometimes. But I love that of just staying neutral and allowing that space for everything to come out and everything to be figured out in more of a calm, consistent, steady way.
Yeah, and to your point of being emotionally charged, I don't think you can fight that. Like if the police
Mhm.
showed up and or the principal called me and said my kid's suspended, right? I would cry. And guess what? I actually think it's really good for our youth to see us cry. I think it's really good for them to go, "Oh wow, I have hurt mom's feelings," or "Look at what I've kind of done to my parents," right? I think that's part of the natural consequences of getting in big trouble. Now, just because I'm crying doesn't mean I'm gonna pick either side right away, right? As we're unraveling the story. But yeah, I might be crying as I'm staying neutral and talking to my teen and saying, "Tell me your side of the story," right? I might be, a little bit short of breath. Like all those things are very normal. And so please don't think I'm saying be a robot when
Right.
you've been called into the principal's office. But just, don't jump to either side of, "Yes, I know my child is a bad egg," or "No, they're a perfect angel and they would never do this," right?
So here's just a question I have about this, Abby, what your thoughts are on this, because I'm thinking if I had a space between when I'm going to actually see my child and like I hear about it, or,
Mm,
like the principal calls me and my child's not quite with me, I think it would be really good for me to take some time and be like, okay, I'm feeling some really big emotions with this
yes.
and kind of work through my emotions before I bring my child into it. And very valid emotions. And again, not because we aren't robots of like, yeah, I'm ticked at them or, oh, this is like, and all the emotions, feeling sad, mad, all the things. But I think I found that it's more helpful for me if I take some time to process that so I don't come up super defensive or super upset.
Yes. You're not
Like,
shocked. That shock is
yes,
going to
that
wear
shock
off.
factor has kind of gone down a little bit. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. That's what I think would be good, just if possible, to have some space to kind of work through our own stuff so we can show up more neutral.
Absolutely. And that is like, for me, when you were talking, I was like, for me, that's the step when I get on my knees and I'm praying and I'm just
Yes.
like, please, like, God, like, help me to understand this, help me stay calm, right? Like, getting in my zone. And I also think if you can have that opportunity of maybe I've talked to some authorities before I get to talk to my teen, that's actually a really powerful spot to be in because, my second tip here is get your teen side of the story, but just like they do in like police interrogation, they'll come in and say, "Hey, I've talked to this other person, but they won't reveal any details about it." And they'll say, "What's your side of the story?" Right? Because then your teen's going, "Oh, I don't know what mom knows, so I better just say it." Right? And so that can be really helpful as you get your teen side of the story and, be real with them. Be like, I need you to be honest with me so that we can be sure we get you out of any trouble that's not yours, right? And like help them see, like, I'm here on your side, but I need you to be honest with me. And then last kind of step through this process is don't take away those natural consequences. I know sometimes we as a parent want to protect our kid from, you know, every wrong boo-boo that can come their way. But sometimes these things like are the lesson in and of themselves, and we don't want to take away that consequence. So I'm going to hold your hand through it, right? I'm going to support you and be with you. But then I get to help my youth decide, okay, we got a ticket, right? Or we now have to go before court, or you're going to be suspended. How are we going to go about this, right? And we can start to make a plan about that. But I'm not taking away and going, officer, you're so wrong. He just needs a warning, right? Like, I'm not fighting it in that sense, but I'm like, okay, youth, like, let's hold your hand through this because I can't take away some of these consequences.
Yeah, I have a great story for this one. You ready?
Yes. I have a couple too.
One of my kids, senior in high school, decided amongst some friends to sauce some cars. Do you know what that is?
You were throwing sauce at cards, right? Like
Yeah, did we already talk about this
sauce
in
pack.
an
No, not the whole
episode?
thing. Tell us.
Anyway, yeah, got caught. And he had to call us and basically we had to talk to the police officer and him, and he was the oldest in them of them, but he wasn't quite 18. And there were some consequences. I mean, he even the next day was like church, and all these people were talking about church, and he had a leader even really let him have it about it, and he was so upset about that. And I'm like, you know what, like that's a consequence. Like you're gonna have people
Yeah.
with different opinions and different ways they respond. And he had to pay a fee where the younger ones had to do community service, and he didn't have a ton of money at that time, and we didn't bail him out. We're like, well,
Yeah.
like you better earn some money. And he told us all the reasons why it was unfair because his fee, and it was true, like the fee is based on what the parents make. And so it could be like $20 and it could be like 300, you know? And unfortunately, he got the higher of
Yeah.
the, like probably the highest. And he was like, this isn't fair because you guys make, and I'm like, yeah, like this is your,
Should have known better. Yeah.
yeah, good to know. And I really love that we didn't bail him out and we weren't mean to him and we didn't tell him how horrible what he
You're
was.
not going to shame him.
We didn't shame him. We just let him experience that. And I think that was such a powerful lesson. We did talk about what would have happened? Well, and so did they talked about this at the court he had to go to. Like, if he would have been 18, it would have been even a greater
Hmm.
consequence. And so, like, just okay, this was probably a good time to experience what happens when you break the law or when you choose to do things like this and the effect they have. Anyway, I just think could have been, we could have easily as parents been like, okay, yeah, you got the highest amount you had to pay.
We'll
That's
pay
on
half of
us. We'll
it
help
or
you
whatever.
pay it.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, we didn't choose to go out on a Saturday night and throw sauce packets at cars, right? I'm like,
Right.
you get to choose that. And so I think it's really good to let them have the natural consequences of it.
Hmm.
And sometimes as a parent, it's hard to watch because they might struggle a little bit in it.
It is. And I think the powerful thing in these life learning lessons is so much of a teen's life, we as parents are the bad guy. And like sometimes we have to be in that role of, yeah, I'm the one coming down on you. I think is so powerful for them to learn. Guess what? There's other, like, for lack of a better word, like bad guys out there. Like now you're with the state and you got to pay them, and I can't bail you out of that. And that is such a powerful lesson to learn. And I know because you've told me with your son, he never did it again, right?
Mhm.
That was his one and only little brush
Yeah.
with the law. And that's all it takes, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And, so with these steps, I get that each situation's unique. I thought, so, with my brother, right? That was scary to have the police show up. But then when he explained his side of like, yeah, dad, I got scared and I barely dinked this Tesla, right? They were able to talk through it and it wasn't as scary as like your son is hit and run, right? And they come together and yeah, go to a court date. He had a ticket from that. Like, there's no taking that away. Now, sharing one story from my little sister. One time she was out pranking her friends out of love, and they toilet papered a friend's house, but they had brought along some other friends, and there was this boy. And unknown to my sister, this boy and the girl that they were toilet papering her house had like a little fling, and then it had fallen out in a really big way. And so, while my sister's toilet papering their house, which is not a great choice, right? But very teen, he was writing on ketchup on their driveway, something. And so later that night, my parents, is like midnight, they get a knock on the door. There's these angry, angry parents of this girl saying, "Do you know where your daughter's at?" Right. And they were like, "No, she's with her friends." Right. Like, and they were like, they've they're shaming her because of this relationship. Like it really was so big, right? And so when my parents could stay neutral, talk to my sister was like, I have no idea. She was like, I toilet papered their house. Like I did that, but I did not do this part of it, right? And so that, even though my parents could be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like this is between this boy and this girl. Like we're not even sure what happened. But the other parents, they didn't care. They were still so ticked and so mad. And yes, it actually cost my sister that friendship.
Mhm.
Um, but I think from a parent's point of view, that changes the game, right? My daughter's not out trying to shame somebody for some fling relationship. She was just toilet papering, right? So as a parent, if I stay neutral, so I got my daughter's side of the story versus just going, I know you did this and I know you wrote this in ketchup, right? They can go, okay, here's where the truth is, and here's that helps me determine consequences, right? That helps me determine a difference. And so I think it's really important to, talk through this scenario. We don't take away those consequences. One last story to wrap us up with is, um, and I thankfully I'm not a part of this. I just heard about this, but there was this group of boys that thought it'd be so fun to jump the fence at an amusement park here in Utah, and there were four boys, and one boy said, "Guys, like I can't do that, right?" And he got in his cart and he left. And that was a great decision. And then one boy said, well, I'll drive you guys there, but I'm not going to go in. Right. And so the two boys went in. Well, they were caught. And then the amusement park said, hey, you broke this thing and it costs $100,000. And
Mm.
the judge actually said all three boys had to split that fine, even the boy that was sitting in the car and didn't actually go into the amusement park. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, and no joke, it's like a $33,000 fine that they're gonna have to pay off. And I don't know all the details about that, but I just thought, wow, are we talking to our youth about that? And My dad, he had this saying, it comes from his favorite show, Lonesome Dove. He would tell us as kids, he'd say, if you ride with horse thieves, you die with horse thieves. And it comes from this famous scene that at the end, one of the cowboys, he'd been riding with this group of horse thieves and he never stole a horse. He never did anything wrong, but he was riding with them. And at the end, when they got caught, they actually got caught by somebody he knew. And he's like, Gus, you know me. You know I didn't steal these horses. You know I was just riding through with this group. And he says that famous line. He goes, well, if you ride with horse thieves, you die with horse thieves, right? And he dies in that movie. And my dad, he taught us that, right? And so I think it's important we talk to our youth when stories like this pop up, right? We say, guys, even if you're sitting in the car, you can still get in trouble. So hopefully
Versus
this
that
helps you
fourth
out.
versus that fourth teen that was like, I'm out of here. I mean, how I bet he was just so grateful that he chose that.
Saved himself $33,000, right?
Did. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Great story.
Yep. Well, parents, best of luck to you, right? And guess what? If your teen's been in big trouble, welcome to being 100% normal and 100% like all of us. I think all of us have a brush with the law as a teenager story, you know? So it's
It's just
very
good
normal.
learning. It's just good learning. We have to look at as parents as like they are going to learn from all these things. And sometimes those lessons are hard lessons, but they're really important lessons.
Yes. So best of luck, and we can't wait to see you in our next episode. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.